Did you think it was going to be easy to start your freelance business? In some ways I did, and I actually worked for the better part of a year offering a service that I didn't really love. It was actually burning me out, but I did scale to $4,000 months before I decided to totally pivot my freelance business, start back over at $0 a month. And that was a really hard lesson to learn. So in today's episode, I want to share with you 37 brutal truths I wish I would have known when I first started my freelance business. Lesson number one, I didn't know if it was, quote, gonna work when I started my freelance business, but I knew that I had three options. Option one was going to require me to go back to teaching, which was my former career, but I had just had a baby and I knew that I was overworked and underpaid in that career and I didn't want to be taken away from my baby. And option number two, I could be a stay-at-home mom, but we were gonna have to learn how to live on less. And honestly, I still wanted to be able to afford family vacations, go out to eat, not have to stress about paying the bills. And then option number three, and that is really what lesson number one is. You don't know if you'll succeed, but the risk beats the alternative. Lesson number two, when I first started my freelance business, or actually before I even got started, I remember being worried about what friends would think, what family members would think, what former coworkers would think, especially when I created that scary Facebook business page. And I remember thinking, are they gonna think I'm in some type of like weird MLM or pyramid scheme? But the thing that was most important was that I was finding a way to work from home, be there for my daughter, support my family financially, and do something that was honest work and that felt alignment to me. So lesson number two, put your head down and do the work and don't worry about what other people think because you care a lot more than other people do. So needless to say, other people aren't thinking about you nearly as much as you think they are. Lesson number three, I remember going for a walk. It was so specifically, I was in Michigan and my sister was in Michigan as well. We were both on vacation with our families and we were going for a walk and she said, hey, I noticed that your Instagram is really growing. And I kind of felt a little embarrassed because it was something that was already outside of my comfort zone. And I was like, oh yeah, I feel really silly. And she was like, no, it's really cool. I think it's awesome. And it was just this realization. And lesson number three, the people in your life who matter the most to you, the people who are really there for you, they will support you in the things that you do and they won't think it's silly. Lesson number four, when I started my freelance business, I actually enrolled in a freelance course that taught me the basics for getting started. And I remember in the beginning, I was really worried obviously about getting clients because if you don't have clients, there's not an exchange of money, you don't have a business, but really the hardest part is just getting started. And once I enrolled in that academy and really had a step-by-step plan for starting my freelance business, I started putting in the work. I set up my Canva account, I made connections, I started networking, and another woman offered to allow me to essentially do some testimonial work for her. And so I created some designs for her in Canva, she gave me feedback, and what it did was really created momentum for me. And even though I wasn't getting paid yet, just feeling like I was making progress was huge for me. So lesson number four, just get started. You're not gonna have everything figured out from day one, but you need to create that momentum and start experiencing some little wins because what you're doing is you're proving to yourself that you can do this and really validating that if you put in work and continue to move forward, you're gonna get to those goals, whether that be one client, 3 clients, 5 clients, and so on. Lesson number five, I remember I stressed so much about creating my brand in the beginning, putting different colors together, looking at Pinterest, getting ideas, playing with my mood board, putting colors together again, reiterating, just this endless cycle. And you really just need to get your portfolio done so that you can put yourself out there and start getting paid for the work because it's essentially this proof of concept that you can do this and people will pay you for this. And they don't really care that much about what your colors look like, believe it or not. So lesson number five, just get your portfolio done and don't stress about your brand because you can always invest in yourself later. And that's what I did. I eventually had a professional redo my branding and also my website, and then I was absolutely in love with it. But at some point, you just have to say done is better than perfect. Lesson number six, I utilize Facebook groups to land clients as a virtual assistant, social media manager, and even a Pinterest manager. And that's actually a strategy I teach inside my Pinterest Manager Academy. And it worked for me in 2018, 2019, 2020, and so on. And it's still working in 2025. And I remember there was this post in a Facebook group I was in, and the post had over 100 comments. And this was going back to 2018 when I first started my business. And I was actually just looking for virtual assisting work. And there was over 100 comments. And I think I was like the 102nd or 103rd person to comment. And I thought, there is no way I'm going to get this role. But to me, it felt like a really positive step to just put myself out there. And long story short, I actually landed that client, and they were paying me for 5 hours a month, $25 an hour. So it was $125 a month, but it was so validating to get that work. And because I also had just put myself out there, it was huge for me. And so lesson number 6, just put yourself out there and try to put aside those thoughts or feelings that there's too many people, it's oversaturated, I won't get this, all of those negative thoughts, and just put yourself out there and take action. Lesson number 7, I remember when I first started pivoting to Pinterest management, and at that time I had been doing virtual assisting and social media management, but neither of those things were really lighting my fire. So I decided I was going to listen to this gut instinct that told me I would love Pinterest. And I had a client at the time who asked me to play around with her account. And I had taken a very brief Pinterest course. It was really more of an overview. There wasn't a lot of depth to it. And truly what helped me feel more confident was actually working on her account and doing the work. And I still had a lot more to learn, but it taught me lesson number 7. If you wait until you have confidence, then you're not gonna go anywhere. Confidence comes through actually doing the work. So lesson number 7, confidence comes through doing the work. Don't wait to take action until you're confident. Lesson number 8, there were a lot of gaps that had to be filled in because as a former teacher, I had no business experience. I didn't honestly even really know what freelancing meant. So it was kind of mind-blowing to me to know that website design, graphic design, podcast management, Pinterest management, social media management, all of these things were types of freelance services you could offer. And as a former teacher, I thought that I would always be a teacher and that I didn't really have other skills or things that I could do, which I know now is absolutely ridiculous. I had lots of transferable skills. So I did what felt like the safest route, and I started offering virtual assisting services, and I felt comfortable about managing people's email, maybe doing some graphic design inside Canva, but I knew that in order to scale your income, you'd want to niche down. So that's when I decided to pivot to social media management. But there was this gut feeling that I would love Pinterest management, and I knew that it was a service you could offer, but I didn't know how to go about learning about that service, and I honestly didn't ask a lot of questions. I was in a Facebook community from the freelance course I had purchased, and I could have asked more questions, but for some reason I was just really lacking confidence, but I had this feeling it would be a good fit. I wasn't super excited about social media management, but it just felt safe. And so what I learned from that was that my intuition was right on. I didn't love social media management. I didn't love virtual assisting. It was a good stepping stone though, but ultimately I had to kind of start my business back over and go from 4 clients to 0 because I pivoted from social media management to Pinterest management. So lesson number 8, listen to that gut instinct or intuition that tells you when something isn't going to be in alignment for you and if it's going to be a good fit, because I had that feeling about Pinterest management and that being the best option for me in terms of freelance services I could offer. And I wish I would have listened to that a little bit sooner. So lesson number 8, listen to that gut instinct because we have that feeling and that intuition for a reason. Lesson number 9, in 2021, I had increased the prices for my Pinterest management services. And up until that point, I had been really just focusing on Pinterest since 2019. And I had invested a lot of money in not only advancing my Pinterest management skills through Pinterest courses, memberships, but I had also been working with a business coach. And I was really confident in getting my clients results, and I had a lot of testimonials. So needless to say, increasing my prices was very justified. Not that you should have to justify it to anybody because it's your business and you can charge whatever you want. But I did, decide to increase my prices, and it's always easier to increase your prices on new clients because they don't know what your previous pricing was, right? But with existing clients, that can get a little bit hairy. But I did decide to only increase prices on existing clients if they had been a client for 6 months or more. So needless to say, I had great feedback. Most people wanted to continue on with their contracts. I think it was like 9 out of 10 of my clients decided to continue on. But I had one client that really kind of shook me up because her email was just like scathing. She was furious. She was so mad. She said it was not, nobody could justify increasing their prices that much. And it really made me question myself as a service provider. It made me feel like I was like questioning my own character. Like she almost made me feel like I was being dishonest by increasing my prices. And it just shook me up. And so with lesson number 9, just know there are amazing clients out there, but there are also going to be not amazing clients, bad clients, and they exist. And as long as you're working from a place of honesty, integrity, you have character, it's not a crime to increase your prices. And as I said, I actually had lots of reasons to justify that price increase, but you also don't have to justify that. And so sometimes it takes something like money to show you who somebody's, their real colors. It is a touchy subject for people, money. But at the same time, it did not warrant that response. It was a very knee-jerk response. And we all have knee-jerk reactions to certain things. It can be, a trigger, but that's when take a minute, sleep on it, maybe take a couple nights and come back down to earth before you respond to people if you're having one of those moments. But just know, as a freelancer or contractor, it's your business. You can charge what you want, but also know that once again, it goes back to working from a place of honesty and integrity. And if you know that you are not doing anything wrong, don't let those things question yourself as a person. So lesson number 9, bad clients exist. You can only control yourself in your actions. Lesson number 10, I can so distinctly remember sitting on my couch, going through this course that was teaching me how to start and monetize a blog. And I was telling my husband, we just took a trip. I could create or write a blog post about flying with a baby, and I can add these affiliate links, and then I can be making this passive money from this. And up until that point, I had been working as a virtual assistant, and then I started offering some social media management services. And I had no business in getting distracted with setting up and monetizing a blog and affiliate marketing. And needless to say, I was getting sucked into this shiny object syndrome where, I saw something that seemed flashy at the time, and I ultimately let it distract me from my most important work, which should have been focusing on scaling my freelance business. And so lesson number 10, try not to get sucked into that shiny object syndrome, because there's lots of different ways that you can make money from home, and everything seems quick and easy, and we think, if I can just do this in addition to this. If it was that easy, everybody would be doing it. All of the low-hanging fruit is gone. So really try to put your head down on your most important work and shut out the other noise, and don't get sucked into that shiny object syndrome. So we've gone through lessons 1 through 10, and we're actually going to pause here because right now my husband is out with our kids and they are waiting to come home and have dinner until I finish. So we are going to pause after lessons 1 through 10. And next week, I'm going to be sharing the part 2 for what I wish I would have known when I started my freelance Pinterest management business. So that just gives you a reason to come back for next week. I would love for you to like this video, subscribe to my channel, let me know in the comments what questions you have, and I hope to see you for the part 2 next week. Bye for now.